Ladies and gentlemen, bottom left-hand corner of Hardwire, getting that win against Zest pretty convincingly. It's classic. And top right, Team NV, he's been aggressive recently. It's DRG. And as I said, DRG is in an interesting spot. In his GSL group, did manage to get the win against Hero, which was very much needed. I believe put him at 1-1 or 1-2. I'll try to remember off the top of my head. I think just 1-1. So I believe he will play 2 or 3 games next. Thursday, actually, is when that's happening. So for those of you that want to catch some StarCraft 2 action, Thursday is GSL. Group B of the round of 10 is finishing off. And you're going to see DRG. You're going to see Maru, Creator, Dark, Hero. It's a really stacked group. It's actually one of my favorite ones. I think the biggest surprise with that is Maru being 0-2. Lost versus Dark and Creator. Which was a bit of a shock. It wasn't what we were expecting, I think. Or what anyone was really expecting to have happen, but there's obviously the chance that Maru does go 3-0 in day 2. But that's DRG's group. There's still a chance that he can advance out of it in GSL, so definitely is looking primed and definitely wanting to try and get qualified here for King of Battles, and it's not a lot of qualification spots. It's, you know, 6 spots from Korea, 6 spots from EU, 3 spots from NA, and then Maru. I believe, if I'm not wrong, is that correct? I believe that should be correct. Yeah. 3 players from each qualifier, 2 Korea, 2 EU, 1 NA. Yeah. I'm not wrong. I know what I'm talking about, guys. Trust me. Although it should be 12 players. Oh. Shh. I think the format might be a little bit different this year. As it looks like both players here are being completely standard right off the bat. Nothing really getting mixed up. Just seeing standards can be. DRG sending a few early lings across the map. Will take the third below his main base. Probe did block off the other option. Didn't want to reveal his lings to try and take that base. Didn't really, you know, want it enough to commit that much just for a probe. Has immediately a Void Ray for Classic here, so is sticking with the standard opening that a lot of players have been doing. It's not going to kind of be flexing into a build that we've seen someone like Hero do. And this is something that I bring up a lot because it's a build that has been kind of terrorizing. Managed to beat DRG pretty handedly. Oh no, Ling's getting in. Should be able to get a kill here onto the Adept with just the 2 Lings, and yeah. Is a confirmed kill. Pretty worthwhile 3 Lings for that Adept. But the build that Hero has been doing recently is a nice scout from the link. It's full information on what's in the main base. Has been 2 Stargate Phoenix into Charge Lot, you know, Blink Stalker, Ground Pound style. And I think that definitely for Protoss, the ground units have been coming back into the meta. You know, there was a long time where it was just, okay, air units all the time, Sky Toss all the way. It's just so efficient to get into Sky Toss with how good Void Rays are in the early game. But with the changes to the Void Rays, with the Queen walk getting changed, so you have to be a lot more creative with how you get those Queens across the map with creep, means that you now have the time and the strength of the robotics bay units, as well as things like Archons and High Templar are a bit quicker. But definitely the robotics bay units, the change is that they're just now so much more efficient. They're so much quicker in comparison because the Void Ray build time got upped just a little bit. And it's going to be Resonating Glaives on the way for Classic. So he's going to be committing into a Resonating Glaives Adept attack, which is definitely an interesting choice. And one that we do see quite a bit. The Glaives has been an option that a lot of players have been opting for. That's a great block off by DRG. Is going to mitigate any drone damage so far. The Adepts just have to get on out of dodge. Are going to get surrounded by Lings, though, and that's a great catch. And DRG this early game. So far, so good from DRG. Not really lost anything. And it looks like that was the +1 air weapons canceled from Classic. Sorry, as I took a drink of water. Still going to be going for the glaive adapts, or glaive adapts. More of them going to be coming across the map. DRG not really prepared for this. Only has 2 Lings and 7 Queens, and the 9 adepts here with the attack speed buff are going to be pretty strong. And behind it, Immortals are being produced. A Forge is on the way. It's not a complete committal. There's a third base behind this. The chance that it gets a lot of damage done is 8 Roaches on the way, and the power of Roaches is something that DRG has expertly shown in the past. As look at this wall off. DRG completely shutting down the adepts. Are you kidding me? DRG, what? You are insane. As finally the adepts are going to find their way into the third base mineral line, they will be managed to slice up so many drones here. And finally Classic finds damage, but it was looking like for a while there he wasn't going to be able to get any value out of those units. 13 drones do end up going down. DRG will have to rebuild them. 17 drones on the way with that larva cycle. Sorry, because I couldn't think of the word. Adepts trying to dive back on, and the Queens are going to transfuse away. The Adepts are getting quite low, and DRG manages to hold on. Of course, the thing is for DRG, you lose quite a few workers. You end up losing, I believe, 16 or so in total. You have to rebuild them. And so behind this Classic, sure, he loses the Adepts, but it wasn't a all-in with the Adepts. It was a situation where Classic had a third base, is taking a fourth at the same time. Classic's going to be in a really comfortable position to continue playing out this game. With more gateways on the way with Blink and +1, he's actually just transitioning it into another timing attack with Blink Stalkers, with +1, and with a Warp Prism as well. And this is a timing attack that actually works really, really well against the Spire play. And of course, Classic doesn't know that the Spire is on the way, but Roaches or Mutalisks, the +1 Blink Stalker timing with a few Immortals is actually so strong. And I love that Classic is just immediately finding this transition. It's such a smooth build coming out from him so far, as 12 Mutalisks are on the way. But if those Mutalisks go across the map, then the Roaches get absolutely smashed. And Classic is going to have the time of his life pushing into this third base of DRG. Here we go, starting to clean up creep. Warp Prism is here now, so you're going to get more Stalkers being warped in. What's going to happen with them? They're heading to the right side of the map right off the bat, and they're going to potentially try and dive on top of that. Warp Prism as, here we go, Warpins come through. Queens are going to get trapped right off the bat. Mutalisks trying to dive on the Warp Prism, but they actually didn't quite realize where it was. Warpins coming through. Again, great force fields onto these Queens, and those transfuses not being there is absolutely massive. As the Corrosive Vial mostly misses, and the ground army really cannot stand up to Classics. DRG just has to back up. The third base is going to go down. And Classics, such a strong timing attack. Apologies for the dip in quality. Disappears though, that is just on the other end, not on our end. Hopefully it will go back to pretty high after this, but Classic finding so much damage. The Phoenix has been produced, and more are going to try and be on the way here to deal with the Mutalisks. Issue is, you don't have those shield batteries at home, so what's the choice? Well, it's going to be a dive on in here for Classic. Look how much he has. I mean, it's 100 army supply versus 100 army supply, but that's 100 army supply Ravagers. Let me tell you, that is not very cost efficient versus these +1 Stalkers, but Classic getting a bit too aggressive here. We'll finally be able to start to find a better trade, but he's lost 22 workers behind it. Drones are going to have to be pulled. More Stalkers being warped in. Classic's just going for the full-on trade. He says, listen, I want to kill you here. I want to kill you now. I'm not worried about my main base. And he's going to start to be able to find the drone damage to back it up as the Immortals are continuing to fire away. Juggles might start to come through here for Classic. He's going to pick up the weak Immortals, pull them back. As this is just absolutely brutal. 57 workers on one side, 41 on the other. More units being warped in, and now it is just these Mutalisks left. But look how many Stalkers there are blinking forward. Oh, Classic, you can't lose the Stalkers, though. If you lose the Stalkers, then you lose the game to these Mutalisks that are trying to... They're going to be coming back here. No, they're diving into the fourth base, actually. Classic doesn't have any workers left. Classic needs to end the game here. Classic blinking back, still has units left, and he's able to clear up these roaches. Then potentially, he can start to try and win this game, but he needs to not lose any more Stalkers. The pickups are decent enough for DRG. His army, the Mutalisks are coming back. Warp Prism, Micro, the blinks need to be perfect as the Mutalisks trying to clean this up, trying to win the game for DRG. The Warp Prism goes down. And that is enough. DRG just barely has enough army left over to win the game. GG. Yeah, that game one, it was a tough call. It was a hard choice to make for Classic, whether or not to pull back and just play defensive. I think the real issue was that he didn't have any sort of static defense up yet. Didn't have cannons, didn't have shield batteries. And so realistically, if you pull back, you're just going to be chasing down those mutas, and it's going to give DRG a chance to get back in the game. You want to keep pushing that advantage realistically. But it did not quite work out. And Glittering Ashes is a much larger map, and so we should be seeing a bit of a different style from both these players, I'd imagine. I don't think Classic is going to be going for Glaive to Depths once again. I think that's a build that, hey, on Hardwire, it's a small enough map, it has nice, angles. You force the awkward third position, so you can go Glaive to Depths. That's not really the case in Glittering Ashes. It's such a large map that it's really going to be tough for you to argue that you can then try and, do Glaive to Depths, and it's just going to be a hard situation. And so we should just be seeing the Stargate, I believe, from Classic heading into the Void Ray, potentially an Oracle first on this map. Just because you actually don't need that Void Ray out for defense as early, your Adepts will do just fine. Yep, there we go. Stargate on the way. And it is as expected. And there's a few more lings than usual coming across the map for DRG. It has gone up to 8. And that does just mean that you will need to complete this wall off fairly shortly here for Classic. And I imagine we're going to get the Oracle first. As I said, on a map like Glittering Ashes, it's big enough that you don't really need to worry about the ling attack early unless you don't complete your wall. But it will be the Void Ray instead. Classic not really going to be opting for that early Oracle instead. Going to be going for it after the Void Ray. It does just mean that the actual potential for damage is a lot lower. But you'll still get the utility out of it. You'll still have, of course, your Revelations and everything like that. Is, uh-oh, Lings get speed. That's 2 Adepts getting caught out so far. Going to look for this round onto a singular one. Knocks it down, and then you're going to have to see these probes used for a wall off, as this Adept should be able to defend this. I don't know, it's taking a lot of damage. The Adept should go down. And you trade some Lings for 2 Adepts. You manage to get the full scout now of the main base. You're going to see the Stargate. You're going to see the Oracle building, the additional gateway. DRG just knows exactly what is happening inside of Classic's main base, and that is, so far, extremely, extremely worthwhile for the Envy Zerg. As a full wall off does go down there for Classic. Oracle has to be used to clean up the Ling, and that just means that you have less energy on that Oracle for when it goes across the map. And +1 air weapons is going to be started up, so we're going to see an air toss game. It's been a little while, but we're going to see it. As the morphs are good, and oh. Guys, is DRG really good again? Because it feels like DRG is really good again. Spore Crawler morphs are absolutely beautiful. Doesn't lose a single worker to the Oracle. Manages to get the Oracle actually quite low on the hull plating. And the Lings, ooh, that's a good scout. Are going to see that the Cybernetics Core is researching. Should know that that means, hey, +1 weapons is on the way. You're going to be having those +1 Void Rays out onto the map. As the Forge, Robotics Facility are the choice here for Classic to follow up on this double Stargate Void Ray production that he has going. As DRG in a fairly comfortable position. 68 workers to 58. Is ahead about 10. Is going to place down in 4th base fairly shortly. That's a fleet beacon on the way. We're going to see carriers. Or potentially, we're going to see flux veins. Do you guys believe in the speed void rays is the real question. As so far Classic, I believe, is sitting around four void rays or so. Is adding on now the 3rd Stargate. And there we go, Flux Veins is on the way, okay. Speed Voids. Certainly an option that is not been used too often as, oh my god, DRG is so on top of this. Just gonna use a single Ling to trigger the Stasis Ward. Has the workers right back onto it and has taken virtually no damage from this early game. Just continuing to produce workers is gonna be getting up to a very, very healthy count. 89. Roach upgrades coming through, but the Spire is the main thing that's on the way, and that's absolutely the correct choice. I think DRG, realizing, of course, that this is going to be an air toss game from Classic. You saw the +1 researching. You've seen no ground units across the map. You've scouted a lot of Void Rays. You kind of get the idea. Okay, it's going to be air tosses. Ooh, Classic. Great point out there by the Observer. Classic not seeing the Spire as the Oracle does finally manage to get damage. 4 kills. That's the first bit of harassment that the Oracle has successfully been able to do. 6 Corruptors on the way, and I actually don't even know if Corruptors are the correct choice here. Because it's Mass Void Ray, I don't think DRG realizes it. Because it's Mass Void Ray, you could actually go for a massive Mutalisk Swell, collapse onto the Void Rays, and you do pretty well there. The Corruptors do get countered just a little bit. Just 10 more RR on the way, and right now, a 5th base on the way for DRG is just continuing to get into these upgrades. Is adding on Carapace. And the reason why you add on Carapace right now as the Zerg is because really what you need is for these Corruptors not to die quickly. They do plenty of damage. Corruptors hit like a truck with no upgrades. And so if you actually just add on the Carapace, you're going to be starting to negate the +1 and +2 upgrades of these Void Rays. And that means that your Corruptors will be able to just shoot for a little bit longer. They'll be able to trade a little bit better. It makes it a little bit less reliant on your micro than getting the +1. So here we go, Corruptors diving on in towards the main, but the Void Rays are already here, so you might just have to back on up. The Flux Veins means that you can chase it down, but Classic not going to opt for that option. There's 22 Corruptors down. Of course, that is enough to counter this Void Ray count, which Classic is continuing to build. We'll be going up to 11 Void Rays. It is a whole lot. As does manage to find the army that was knocking down the rocks. Coastal Bios push that back, and it's so many Void Rays. Like, honestly, DRG, if he gets a singular Viper right now, kind of counters this entire army. And I feel like that's going to be the choice for DRG, sitting at 5 bases, adding on your Roach upgrades, getting the Hive. The next add-on is those Vipers, and then once you hit that, well, your army is just kind of better. It's going to be able to counter what the Protoss has is, here we go. Gonna be looking for... The Cryptor Spit is unfortunately not fast enough to knock down that Nexus before the Void Rays respawn. It was Classic. Stepping a bit far forward here. Corruptors do come in to protect the rest of the army. DRG just backing up, already has the +2 missile attacks. Gonna be coming through for his army, but it's +2 Void Rays. And there's so many of them. There's so many Void Rays right now. For Classic, who's finally gonna clean up his creep. By the way, DRG's creep spread this game has been absolutely insane. Like, DRG has actually been handling this late game so far extremely well. Again, I would love to see Vipers added on. I feel like that's really the only thing that you're missing as the Zerg right now. Corrosive Vials do manage to get a lot of damage onto some of those Void Rays. I mean, right now, would love to see, I mean, a Viper, an Infestor, any Spellcaster right now for DRG would be, I think, the right add-on, but it's going for the Ultralisk Cavern. Disruptor shot is save as the Spore Crawler wall actually ends up trapping a lot of the units, clumping them up, and that is not really what you want, but now 2 Vipers are going to be on the way, so the correct response from DRG, as Spore Crawlers are going to try and be repositioned. Disruptor shots, not going to get too much value right yet. Trying to go for the Queens, but I don't know if the Queens are really the best option, as Banelings do get rid of a lot of the Zealots. DRG continue to chase that down. Queens get pounced on. Oh, those Corrosive Vials are good. They're going to force the whole army forward. Oh, that Disruptor shot is so good. As the Zealot run by as well, Classic handling this pressure so well. I mean, these Disruptor shots have been absolutely disgusting. Getting so much value. As here we go, Corruptor's going to dive back on him, but now there's no more Spores. You don't want to fight straight into these Void Rays. There are so many of them. The Vipers are out. There we go, Parasitic Bomb. And now look at the damage that's going to come through onto these Void Rays. They're all getting low. The Corruptors are going to dive on forward. Prismatic Alignment immediately turned on. I still think the Corruptors can fight. This is all of the Void Rays getting so low. The Corruptors should be able to clean it up. And as I said, the Vipers getting so much value as Corrosive Vials, the fadeaway from DRG. But these Zealot run-bys have been absolutely doing so much damage. The 5th base is gone. A lot of the Roaches have been cleaned up, and DRG has not been able to reestablish it. He's been focusing on the micro of defending against the Void Rays. And Classic, sitting at 5 bases of his own, is going to be remaxing onto carriers. DRG right now has lost so much 4K minerals, more than his opponent. He's still going to be adding on Corruptors. He's getting the +3 Flyer Carapace. These Corruptors, they're not looking to damage. They're looking to take a few hits. And against carriers, of course, is a great upgrade to get. You also have an Ultralisk on the way. But that 5th base is once again going to have to be canceled. And for DRG, how are you going to deal with this army from Classic? There's just so much power here. Ultralisk going to try and fight straight up. Chitinous Plating, I don't believe, has been researched just yet. And as the Stalkers are getting so much value, there's no Broodlords to help deal with this. I mean, this is just insane by Classic, this late game. And DRG is trying to get into his late game tools. He's getting into the Broodlords now. Will finally be able to help push back these Stalkers. But the issue is, have you taken too much damage up until this point? DRG gonna have to match the movement of the Protoss army. Infestors are on the way, and mind you, if you get Infestors out, There we go. Yoinks come through. Corruptor's immediately going to be able to snipe down the Void Rays. And now the Corruptors can actually just dive on top of these carriers. Nice. Oh, this might be a little bit dangerous here for Classic. I think he might have stepped a bit too far forward. He has such a massive lead. But now your carriers are going to start to fall. The Yoinks come through. The carriers should go down. Sure, it takes a while for the Corruptors to kill them. They're eventually going to get there. The Broodlords, though, are going to fall. More Roaches need to be produced. More Lings need to be produced. All of the carriers are down. And DRG is going to try and clean this up. Manages to snipe the Warp Prism, but it's too much. GG. Classic is going to tie us up. Top right hand corner. Some amazing play in that last game. It is Classic. He knew his transitions. He knew how to get strong enough. And the bottom left, still looking to close it out. It's DRG. And that last game was back and forth for sure. Felt like at certain moments you had DRG being super far ahead with a chance to just collapse in and get so much damage done. And then at other times, Classic able to just find the transitions, get into the Blink Stalkers, and I think that was really the biggest moment in the game was the Stalker transition for Classic, where he was able to, I mean, pretty much completely mess with DRG's transition. DRG was trying to get into Infestors, Vipers, Broodlords, just trying to get pretty much all the tech that he wanted for his late game army, and then having a whole bunch of Blink Stalkers show up at his front door completely shut that down. And now we're on 2K Atmospheres. It's a bit more of a standard map. It's not as big as Glittering Ashes, so of course, you're not really going to be having the luxury of being able to go for the 2 Stargate Void Ray, like Classic did. There's still a chance on this map that you can get Queen Walked. It's very, very possible. Stargate's going to be on the way regardless. Classic probably going to be doing the same build he's been doing this whole time. Going into the Void Ray and then straight into the Oracle. Has just kind of been, I think, the safest opening for Classic. And I think even with the changes, that has still been the safest opening for Protoss in general. And one of the main reasons being, again, the Void Ray and the Oracle do provide just so much early game defense. And I think one of the more interesting things, aside from that, is the fact that the Oracle, we've seen some players actually just opt for an Oracle instead of a Void Ray because it costs less. You get the utility of the Oracle building up energy. It still defends Lings fairly well. It just does less well against Roaches. Against super early Roaches, that is. And I don't know, it's strange. It's a stylistic difference, really. A player like Hero, who wants to have these really quick transitions and runs with this super fast style of just constant pressure and attacking, for him, going up to 3 Oracles, 2-3 Oracles, is, I think, the best option for Hero. I think that works the best for him. For Classic, obviously, his is a little bit more standard, where you're going to want to get into a third base a bit quicker. You're going to want to get into just your safe tech. You don't really want to build the additional Oracles. And so it kind of feels like, it's really a stylistic option for Protoss players, is how you want to approach it. What you want to do is that's going to be +1 and a double Stargate again from Classic. Interestingly enough, has decided that this is how he wants to approach this, is going for the double Stargate. And of course, it's a comfortable opening. It's a comfortable build for Classic. It's what you're used to. But if DRG scouts it out, if DRG gets a beat on it, is he going to do anything differently from last game? I think while DRG had a good response, it wasn't as good as it could have been. And so we'll see. DRG should be able to scout out the fact that +1 is researching. If that Ling goes to the main wall, or if it goes to the wall outside the natural base, you see the Cybernetics core spinning. It's past, 330. You should kind of have an idea. Okay, that's +1. That is not going to be Warp Gate. That is actually your +1 ship weapons that is researching in DRG. Should realize that the Roach Warren is almost done. We'll see if he opts to go for this quick Spire, or if it's just going to be continued Queen production. We'll see. Double Void Ray on the way. Immediately into the Robotics Bay to get up those Disruptors. And I actually think even bigger than the fact that Classic went for the Blink Stalkers last game was how much damage he got done with the Disruptors. The Disruptor shots last game, quite frankly, were disgusting. They should never be allowed to get that much damage done. And it hurt my heart. Even as a Terran player, I don't even play Zerg, and I felt pain when I saw those Disruptor shots. And we'll see if DRG can handle them a little bit better in this game. The real issue was he was actually walling out his own units with his Spore Crawler walls and ended up taking a lot more damage than he needed to. But it's Fleet Beacon on the way, 3rd Stargate, and it's the exact same build run back here for Classic. And for DRG, the Spire is on the way. I suppose the real question is, do you, again, go into the Corruptors with the +1 Carapace? Or do you instead try and go for Mutalisks to try and fight a little bit better against those Void Rays? I think, again, most players just like the Corruptor. I think it's just a better unit overall to counter all of these Stargate units and the transitions that they have possible. But I've seen DRG before in the past. I think even against Classic, if you manage to catch the Void Ray player off guard with a swell of 13, 20 or 13 to 10 to 13 Mutalisks, you can actually get so much value. But it does look like it's going to be the Corruptors. The +1 Flyer Carapace is on the way. It's Classic continuing just to push back these Lings. Flux Bane's almost done. Already has the +2. Air weapons on the way. As right now, DRG, what is your answer? Well, immediately into Infestors, and I do like it, actually. The quicker Infestors, I think, is just a better option. I think the biggest issue for DRG in that last game was he didn't have his tech units up. He had Corruptors, but did not have Vipers, didn't have Infestors, and so he wasn't able to quickly collapse on these Void Rays and pounce on them and find a good fight. But that's going to be changed. 4 Infestors are already on the map. Neural Parasite is being researched. You're getting upgrades for Zerglings, actually. So DRG is kind of preempting what the build is going to be from Classic. He's preempting the fact that Classic is going to go for Blink off of this, and that he's going to want to get out Zerglings, which is, I think, a really, really interesting adaptation from DRG. Right now is sitting at a massive bank, and I think he's waiting to get that big Corruptor swell. As Viper's on the way, upgrades are going to start coming through here for TRG, who's getting Adrenal Glands, Flyer Carapace, Pneumaticized Carapace, Melee Attacks, and Melee Carapace, as well as that Neural Parasite. Ultralisk Cavern as well on the way. DRG is just setting up. He's getting ready to try and deal with this army. I think this is absolutely the correct way to handle this. You don't invest too much until you know exactly what Classic's late game army is. And then as soon as you kind of have a beat on exactly what Classic wants to go for, then you're going to just spam out your units. As 14 Spore Crawlers are going to go on the way. making these Spore Crawler walls. And there we go, 5 Ultras to counter the ground army. And the rest should be filled out, I imagine, by Corruptors. Classic is going to look to start to clear up a bit of this map. Again, the creep spread from DRG is actually, frankly, insane how much creep he's able to get onto this map. Right now, Classic cannot comfortably take anything past these 5 bases. It is, of course, nice that he can get up to 5 bases, but DRG immediately going up to his own 6th, adding on his +2 upgrades, adding on the Chitinous plating as well. And this army that DRG is building is going to be quite terrifying to deal with. Its Ultralisk is going to be Lings and Banes, and then the main brunt of it is actually your Infestor, Viper, Corruptor. And essentially, this is the style that Cyril was doing for a little while. As, oh my god, those fungals, immediately 2 parasitic bombs go out, another fungal as the recall goes through, but all those units are going to get so low. I don't know how many of them are going to die, but here we go. It's the Ultras, the Banelings rolling on through, and this is the style that Cyril was doing a little bit ago. Just having the run-bys, trying to just find damage. Does manage to get a bit, but not as much as you would like for how many Ultralists just went down. Those Void Rays getting so much damage done, and look at that, not all of them end up dying to those parasitic bombs. That's Classic. Defends extremely well. He's going to continue to add on the carriers, go up now to 6 with +3. Also, 2 robotics facilities on the way, going to be continuing to add on those disruptors. Storm, +1 for the ground units, and Classic is now starting to get into the ultra late game Protoss army. DRG, what is your response? Well, Corruptors are finally being added on. Does, of course, still have the Spellcaster, which is the main important thing with this army. Sure, you lost a lot of the Ultralisk, which does hurt, but it's fine, because of course you are just going to be having those spellcasters, as the Void Rays are going to look for a counterattack here, find the 5th base. Should be able to get rid of it fairly quickly. Are gonna get, a few of them get knocked down there from the Spore Crawlers. As this Protoss army, it's going to be +3 air weapons and only +1 shields. It's not going to be the strongest. If these spellcasts go down and you don't get an immediate recall to a shield battery, this army is weak. As, uh-oh, here we go. DRG thinks he's found an opening, immediately throws down the Shroud to make sure that his Ultras can survive. Fungal growths go down. Parasitic bombs onto all of the Void Rays as the Corruptors dive on forward, but they're not even needed. The Void Rays are going to fall. And then once all of that is left is the carriers, you can start to fight this just a little bit better. Only +2 Carapace is done, but it is enough. And DRG finds the fight. So many spellcasts had to go down. I was trying to remember all the names, and I'll be honest, I almost forgot a few minutes better, just a little bit, but still. That's the kind of fight you need as DRG. Collapse onto the army, get your spellcasts off. Microbial Shroud to keep the Ultras alive for as long as possible so they can get rid of the High Templar, they can get rid of the Disruptors. And then suddenly all that's left is the fungal growths, the parasitic bombs, and those Void Rays do just melt. Okay, they're gonna make their way through. Try and knock down this base just a little bit. Two of the pylons do go down. The Ultras, unfortunately, are a little bit big and a little bit clunky, so they're not going to be able to find their way through. DRG continuing to build up this Spore Crawler wall, and ladies and gentlemen, this game, we're only 14 minutes through, but it's already been propelled straight into the late game. We're going to continue to see these Zealot run-bys, but thing is DRG just has so much creep. Like, there's no zealot run-bys that go across the map that DRG is not going to see. He's not going to have a beat on where these zealots are. Classic is still trying to clear this up. Finally has a lot more High Templar with Storm. He's adding on Immortals as well to help deal with those Ultralisks, which is a great addition here. So we're up to 8 carriers. Still, I mean, sitting at, I think, a very healthy count of about 5-6 Void Rays. And what is the army for DRG? Well, doesn't have a ton so far. Has gone up to 23 Corruptors. Has the 4 Infestors and 3 Vipers, and that's really the key for the Zerg player. +2 ground weapons are on the way, so finally we're going to see Classic start to add on a few of the other upgrades. +1 ship plating on the way. Tectonic destabilizers as well. So potentially, once this army goes down a little bit, once you start to see a few of these carriers picked off, once there's a fight, we should actually see Tempest being added on as well. As Classic is going to try and get himself a 6th base. Right now, DRG sitting comfortably at 7. Broodlords are being added on now, though. And really, both these players are just gearing up to get these massive late-game armies. It's a situation where you're just trying to find counters. Right now, the main base of Classic's army is the carriers. The Void Rays are there to help deal with the Corruptors. The Storms are to help deal with the Corruptors. And then the Immortals are finally added on to deal with the Ultralisks. You also have those High Templar to feed back the Infestors and the Vipers. And meanwhile for DRG, what is it? Well, it's Ultras to deal with the High Templar. It's now going to be adding on Broodlords to deal with the Immortals. And then your Infestors, Corruptors, and Vipers. All for this air army. As Ultras going to try and find a run by, but look how much stack defense there is. Void Rays as well means that these Ultras, well... Ultras, it seems, do get knocked down pretty quickly by these +3 Void Rays. Even with +3 upgrades being done for DRG, does not have the +3 flyer attacks though. Which is a big upgrade to get done. And we're just gonna have a stalemate. Both these players not wanting to commit across the map, not wanting to force the engagement, because if they do and they lose, suddenly there's really nothing left. This Classic still gonna look to try and poke on in here. As soon as the army shows up, should try and back up, but that's a really good fungal growth, actually. Void Rays gonna manage to snipe a base across the map. The 7th goes down. So a lot of the Immortals do actually fall to these Broodlings. Gonna be able to also snipe a High Templar. Another base goes down, and there's just no response right now to these Void Rays. A lot of bases going down here for DRG, which is absolutely so annoying. Losing these bases, losing the larva, does manage to snipe off a lot of these Void Rays though, and only one gets recalled, it immediately gets sniped. That hurts for Classic. Gonna be losing those units, but now adding on 4 Tempests, adding on a Mothership, adding on Void Rays, getting into the +3/+3 for these Immortals. It's just a bona fide air toss army right now that is on the way for Classic. And for DRG, building up a massive bank. +3 flyer attacks, finishes now. Has almost 9k minerals in the bank, 7k gas. He can rebuild his army. And that's not something you say often. With these late game Zerg armies, they are so resource intensive. They are just so expensive, but even with that, DRG has enough money that he could rebuild his entire army, even if he loses a fight. 5 Evo chambers are on the way for that Viper energy, so you can start to consume it. More hatcheries being remade now. And Classic has finally expanded himself to a 5th and a 6th, as here we go, Corruptor's going to start to be annoying. You can just look for these abducts onto carriers, immediately get the one shot. As we're approaching 7 base versus 7 base. And I'll tell you, 2,000 atmospheres has never seemed so small, or has never seemed so large as both of these players. Going to be setting up on opposite sides of the map. DRG preparing for a siege onto the 4th base of Classic, which still has actually quite a lot of minerals left in it. This is a base that realistically Classic should want to protect. Has his whole army here. One Viper does get very low. Gateways are going to go down. Broodlings get cleaned up as DRG pulls back, approaching now a 10k mineral bank. As 6 supply can add on, you know, potentially. Well, there we go, an Ultralisk. I was also thinking 3 Corruptors. Maybe even 3 Infestors. A Viper, 2 Vipers. Craziness. As more hatcheries going down for DRG. This one should be canceled. I believe that was a recall across the map, potentially. But the army has been repositioned for Classic. Now going to try and find his way over to this 4th base of DRG, which has, for the most part, been mined out. It's not a hatchery that you really are going to be too worried about losing. The base goes down. DRG doesn't really lose anything for it. Eighth base gets canceled, and the 8th bases on 2,000 atmospheres are the hardest to get. It is a map that is ridiculously difficult to get up to a full 8 base economy. And as we're seeing here, it's just because those 8th bases are so close to your opponent. As feedbacks go down onto the Queens, but they immediately transfuse through the Storm. Zealot run by here into the 4th is going to start to clean up a few of these drones, but honestly, cleaning up a few of the drones is actually great right now for DRG, who really does just need, I mean, he just needs more army supply. There's really nothing that DRG is worried about right now. He has 11k minerals in the bank. 11k. As the mothership did go down, minus 400, minus 400. And surprisingly here, Classic is still struggling to get all of his upgrades in order. Has +3 shields on the way, but does not have +3 flyer ship plated. And I think that's a massive oversight right now from Classic. The fact that you don't have just all of your upgrades done at this point in the game is absolutely crazy. As here we go, Duck's gonna come through, immediately a feedback onto one of the Vipers, but you snipe off a Tempest. This base is gonna continue to be sieged. DRG gonna try and just find an opening in this game through this position, trying to take that 8th base, that 8th hatchery, going up right now, retaking the 4th in the bottom right corner, or the middle bottom corner, the middle bottom of the map. Finally, that +3 ship plating is started up, but it's going to be so late for Classic. That's an upgrade that he needed so long ago, just to have a little bit more staying power with this army. Revelation goes down, Tempests are going to push forward, and with the Tectonic destabilizers, these Tempests do a pretty darn good job of knocking down Spore Crawlers. It's 2 Immortals and a Warp Prism. Going to be headed towards the main, and actually, 2 Immortals and a Warp Prism can get a lot of value, but, well, look at this. It's a whole bunch of Ultralisks and Banelings. Turns out, pretty good at dealing with units, as the Oracle is immediately going to get sniped as well if Ducks go down. Ooh, Tempest pushing a bit far forward. Immediately feedbacks go down. It's a good Storm. A lot of soft enough health bars on those Corruptors. The Spore Crawler line keeps moving forward, and this game 3, 24 minutes of action, and it feels like DRG is finally saying that he wants to try and end this game. The base should go down. There's not really anything left here for Classic to try and find a hold. As, Fungal Growth, Abduct. Snipes another Tempest. Classic, of course, does have plenty of money to rebuild all of these units, and that's not really going to be a worry for the Protoss player. Another Zealot run by. Gonna try and snipe down that base. A single Corruptor has been peeled off onto that Warp Prism. Finally, the last Tempest does get sniped. And Classic supply has dropped just a little bit. Needs to start to rebuild. 5 Tempests at a time. Warpins coming in the main as the Queen got cleaned up. DRG still just trying to deal with this really, really annoying harassment from Classic as both these players fighting tooth and nail for this final game. Classic's gonna try and snipe the Greater Spire. If that goes down, okay, the Immortal Hardened Shield was triggered. Cells get cleaned up, so that hatchery is still alive. You still have plenty of larvae available for DRG. As both these players are sitting at an insane amount of units. 142 army supply to 149. Finally, we're going to see the upgrades come through from Classic, and this actually might be enough to swing the game. DRG has max upgrades. He is finished. He's right now just getting buildings in order to replenish them in case they get sniped by, you know, this Warp Prism, by these Zealots. But right now, Classic has been given the time, gets +3 shields, gets +3 air armor. That means that this army is full power for the Protoss. DRG continuing to move this line forward. He's going to try and section off the entire left side of the map for the Zerg Swarm. And mind you, DRG is already on 8 bases. Classic has not been able to take his 8. And that is a massive difference. It means that DRG is finally going to be mining again. For the longest time, DRG really did not have that much mineral income available to him. And you just see the strength of these Tempests. Hatchery to get picked off there at the bottom of the map. Again, these Zealot run-bys from Classic just trying to find value wherever he can, trying to knock down whatever buildings he can. As we're going to look to approach a 30-minute game. And honestly, we might head straight into the qualification matches after this, depending on what finishes up. Because both these players not willing to give an inch. DRG showing some amazing control with this late-game army. Classic as well. Pushing and pulling with the Tempest, is now swinging the entire army over to this right side of the map. He's going to try and take control of his own half. But here's the thing, the army's already been moved over. DRG already has all of his units in position. The Warp Prism gets sniped. Zealot Warpins at the 8th, immediately have to burrow the drones. It's so annoying for DRG to deal with. Should just bring over the Ultras and the Banelings. I don't know why the Corruptors are headed on over. We'll be able to snipe the Warp Prism, but that is just about it. You bring over your entire Corruptor flock just for that one purpose. You're still going to lose the base, as now Classic is going to use this opening to try and push down a few of these buildings. He's going to be able to get rid of the Evolution Chambers. That hatchery is not going to go up, and now finally Classic could take the 8th base of his own. The issue is you still need to look for these cost-efficient trades, and that's something that DRG has not been giving Classic. The Ultras and Banelings got to find their way into the main base here, and actually, if they manage to clean up a few of these robotics facilities, can be quite annoying for Classic, because those Immortals are, again, a main counter for this ground army. You also have the Corruptors coming on over, because the rest of the army isn't here. Those carriers, they move so slow. Uh-oh, DRG, gotta be careful, though. Doesn't want to overextend. As the Ultras should, for the most part, be forfeit. Zealot run-by is going to get cleaned up. These Warp Prisms just continuing to be so annoying. Finally, there's a large enough Ling army, though, to help deal with this. That goes down. Classic looking for another push now. 13K in the bank, because this game is just getting, quite frankly, ridiculous. This is insane. As the Warp Prism is here, the Corruptors come over, clean it up. 3 more robotics facilities are on the way as the Link counterattack has actually managed to clean up all of those, all of the robotics facilities that Classic did have available to him. As the entire left side of, the entire left 2/3 of the map have been cleaned up and now will start to be claimed by DRG. As his creep is going to continue to spread, can even start to take that 4th base, which Classic did not have enough workers on to saturate, mind you. So that means that DRG can take that base. He'll actually still have a bit of mineral income from it. That can make all the difference in you get into late game once a lot of your units start to fall in these big engagements. But we're 30 minutes in, neither player budging an inch. Classic continuing just to lose units here and there, and it's actually starting to get quite bad for Classic. He is mining resources, and he is actually mining more resources than DRG, but DRG has not lost a significant amount of units in the past like 10-15 minutes. DRG has been playing it completely safe, picking off units wherever he pleases, and Classic has been trying to find like these small openings, but he hasn't been getting value. He hasn't been getting buildings. You know, right now you want worker kills, you want hatchery kills. He hasn't really been getting those. Wolf should finally be able to maybe pick off this hatchery, but no, there's immediately just units here to deal with it. DRG just answering everything. Classic's bank is getting smaller and smaller. The more that he loses, the more that his warp prisms go down, the less value you're getting out of your units. Here we go. Classic trying to push this position now. There's not a lot of units here. Microbial Shroud does go down to help protect the Queens from these Tempests. Unfortunately, that does not help the Spore Crawlers. There now are enough Tempests to one-shot pretty much every unit in this Zerg army. And Classic. Still, I mean, you lose 23 probes to Baneling run-bys. You're just losing units here and there. I actually think he might have given up those units, actually. Never mind. Sacrificing probes right now. He knows that he doesn't have enough to saturate the one base that he has left mining. Sacrifice some probes. He's going to be able to remake that into army. It's going to be 4 Void Rays. It's Classic right now. In a rough position. The bank for DRG is massive. Even if Classic manages to find the fight of a lifetime, where he cleans up DRG's whole army, it can be remade twice. It can be remade twice as storm drops do come through. Only 5 drones end up going down. That's actually a lot of storm energy used. And again, drone kills aren't what you need right now. Those storms are better used in a fight. Those storms are better used for zoning away Corruptors. They're better used, the energy is better used for feedbacks. Because right now, workers are not something that DRG needs. DRG could care less about workers as those Banelings get so much value. Right now, DRG has so much money that realistically you just need to get rid of buildings. As the Corruptors are just continuing to chase down these High Templar. TTs are being warped in, and actually Dark Templar, there's no Overseer with that army though. Another storm drop, and we'll see. There is no army here as Classic is going to try and start to knock down this hatchery. And again, this is what you want to start doing. Killing the hatcheries is much more efficient for Classic as another Warp Prism goes down. Corruptors did manage to catch it. The hatchery falls. Classic continuing to try and find openings here, continually having to rebuild his army. So I'd love to see the resources lost. on how much has gone down this game, because it has to be absolutely ridiculous. As DRG, I mean, just playing safe. He's playing... He knows what he needs to do to win, and right now just outlast his opponent. He has... Whew, that hurts so much. I mean, losing 15k more resources than a Zerg, you know? Classic has, you know, he chose the game to go this direction. DRG embraced it. As the Greater Spire is being rebuilt, that was killed earlier, and so DRG hasn't been able to rebuild his Broodlords. We'll finally get that back to be able to produce just a few more, but honestly, Broodlords, really their only use right now is pushing power. The Corruptors are actually more useful in a straight-up fight. As here we go. Uh-oh, Classic a bit too far forward. That's an amazing fungal growth. Where's the Parasitic Bomb to follow up? Really comes through. Feedbacks are decent, but they're not good enough. Fungal growth only catches a single one of the Void Rays. Classic continuing to push this on back. It has to be so careful. The Corruptors just diving forward. Oh my god, DRG, what are you doing? The Corruptors dive on forward. They're going to now get on top of the army. But he was just attack move, or move commanding in. As these carriers are getting so much value, the Tempest trying their hardest to fight this. The Focus Fire going down. Finally, the Storms are going to follow. But all of the Interceptors are down. And DRG loses almost everything. The move command on the unit's not what DRG needed. Now he can remax. 23 more Corruptors on the way. But that was the fight that Classic needed. He can start to remax. He can start to work on it. But DRG does have the full remax, and that's the real danger here. You have those Infestors that are burrowed. They can look for a massive fungal growth. There are no more High Templar for feedbacks. As Classic realizes he's out of money, he needs to try and push this. He needs to try and find damage. He needs to kill bases. That's exactly what he's doing, but here we go. Fungal growth from behind. The Corruptors dive on in immediately. The recall is popped. But you're still going to lose a few units more than you would like as Classic. And the bank of DRG is just too strong right now. As Classic snipes 2 bases, they're immediately rebuilt. Infestors are added back on. Corruptor count is going to get back up towards that 30 number. And the 4 Vipers added back. As Classic still, I mean, has the 1 base mining economy, but it is not enough to really rebuild the army that he wants to. It is enough to rebuild this massive Protoss force. I mean, right now, I guess the nice thing is you can rebuild Archons, and Archons are going to be extremely useful to help deal with the Corruptors. The splash damage of the Archons is very powerful with +3 attack, with +3 shields. You know, these are maxed out Archons. And the only way that I see Classic really being able to fight in this game is if he does, yeah, I guess a massive Archon number, a lot of High Templars. Just needs to find something, and you can see here, Classic knows that this game is potentially over. These High Templars should be with the army. Classic is pushing into the main base, and he has 4 High Templars and a War Prism that are going to do absolutely nothing. Oh, this just hurts right now, Classic. I don't think he realizes how just massive the economy is for DRG, as the Archons are going to be morphed. Those are Storms that don't really get much value. The Archons go down. And Classic does clean up the main base. He gets all of the tech of DRG, does manage to supply block the Zerg. And mind you, behind this, Classic is still trying to work towards another remax, is working towards Tempests. And if he is able, I mean, even if he's able to only get to 180 supply, if Classic gets to 180 supply on Air Toss, with High Templar, with this many Archons, there's absolutely potential that he could once again take an amazing fight. DRG doesn't control it quite right. And then suddenly this game is in limbo. And that is right now what he is playing for. The Greater Spire is still available. The Spires are still available. The spawning pools will have been rebuilt at that 5th base location. And Classic's army right now is so strong. He has got to 188 supply on Archons, Immortals, High Templar, high value units. More High Templar have been added in. Immediately a great snipe there onto these Infestors. DRG only has 4K minerals left in that bank. Classic has remade a massive army. There's a chance here for Classic. As long as he doesn't overstep, as long as he's able to keep his army control perfect, there's absolutely a chance to win this game as feedbacks go down to the Infestors, and those are high quality targets. High Templar are snagged by the Ultras, but that's about it. These Tempests continuing to find value. DRG, you can't really push forward into this army. As Classic is maxed out. With that one base economy, Classic has managed to lose not much more. Has maxed out once again. DRG, that bank is not enough to rebuild this army if he loses it. As more Broodlords are going to be added on, the Archon count is absolutely insane. DRG needs these Broodlords to help deal with them. Still has an extremely high Corruptor count. He's going to max out himself. As now it all just comes down to the control. Classic, of course, is the one who needs to push this base down. He knows that DRG has a bank. Fungal Growth does get a few of the units. Immediately feedbacks go down. Another Fungal Growth. Gonna try and snipe at least 2. There we go. Of the Tempests. And DRG, is he gonna force it now? I don't know if you can. Those storms are massive. The Broodlords here just standing in them. The storm's getting so much value so far as the Broodlords are all getting low. Fungal Growths have not gone down. Finally they are. But where are the Parasitic Bombs? There's not a lot of energy left for DRG. And his whole army is just getting cleaned up. As Classic finds the comeback.